Okay, let's review what I've been doing the last 2 days. We've totally forgotten about Masechta Nedarim, and we immersed ourselves in Seder's Royim. We had a shaila like this. If you went ahead, he's still suffering. Okay, so we began again. We're doing the sugya of the shaila of Rabbi Shmuel Kfar Yoma. What did he say? If you take a onion, you put it. It grew in the Shemitah year. You planted it in the 8th year, and you had a majority of the growth in the 8th year. According again, Machlokes, the Rosh and the Tosfos and the Ran had to learn Pshat. The Tosfos and the Rosh learned the classic case of Bittul, and the Ran learned the big Chiddush. The Ran said the shaila over here is whether the growth that came out of the Isser, in this case, the heter of 8 that came from the Isser of 7, does it have a halacha of 7 or a halacha of 8? That's what we wanted to know. And mainly, if it has a halacha of 8, then it's vatal. If it has a halacha of 7, then it's not bittul. That was the shaila according to the Ran of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Yanai brought a case from Truma that if you go ahead and you plant Truma in the ground, it goes ahead, then it's mutter, meaning it loses its shem Truma, it gets its shem tevel, and it would be mutter to eat nachilas aroi. It wouldn't have a din of truma, so a worker would be able to eat before you have the gemar melacha of achilas kvat, which would also a set amount. You would be able to go ahead and eat it. Obviously, then the heter, the tevel, is being mevatel, the iser, the truma. So that was Rabbi Yanai. Came along Rav Yirmiyah and said, Rabbi Yanai, you're going up against 2 big guys, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yonason. Rabbi Yochanan, case of Arla, you have a branch on a tree, it has fruit, it's Arla fruit. Attached it and grafted to a kosher tree, it's still usher, and we don't, even though it grew more 200ths of its growth, which is the share of bittul by Arla, nonetheless it remains usher. So you see, it doesn't mavatal. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yonason, you take an onion, plant it in the kerem, it gets halacha klei kerem, asa bahana, take away the kerem, the onion continues to grow, it's still asa. So why Rabbi Yonason says, why do you go Rabbi Yanai? Why do you go? Say you're going up 1 against 2, says Rabbi Yanai. Well, actually, I have a Mishnah. I have another statement. I have a statement of what? Of where you go ahead. Rabbi Yitzchak said he brought in Rabbi Yitzchak that if you have a liter of onions, you go ahead and you take them, or you upkashade, and they're totally kosher v'yasha. You plant them in the ground, and they grow. You would still have to take maisa off the heter that grew. So let's say you put 1 and 9 grow. You'd have to take heter off maisa, even off the 1, not just 9. You'd have to go all 10. So what do you see? That 1 is also batel. So therefore, I have proof to me also. That was the proof that to the shaila. So basically, you have 2 against 2. You have Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yitzchak against Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yonason. So we went ahead. We said, well, that actually is not a good raya because that's a case of a chumrah. It's in the previous shilas, guys. Each one was a isser. The previous shilas, guys, was speaking this. So let's go through. This first shaila, it was a 7 to an 8. So you mevatel shmita. Loy Rabbi Yonason, you're being mevatel arla. Loy Rabbi klei kerem. Loy Rabbi Yochanan, you're being mevatel arla. So in all those cases, we want to know, is it a kula to be mevatel a isser? Over here, you have a heter, it's metukin. And now you're telling me that that you have to take truma off of it? So obviously it's a chumrah. The thing that grew is being machmir. That wasn't a shaila by us. When something is heter and the other giggle is isser, you know it's mevatel. That's what we stated yesterday. And then we came up with a Reb Shimon. We had a shaila from Rabbi Davishesh Matirin in the Shmi, and said if it's Davishesh Matirin, I feel Elefle Batel. Davishesh Matirin, The Chacham gave a share, respectively, 60, 100, 200, 60 by normal cases, Tarubis, 100 by Truma, 200 by Arlen, Klei Kerem. So you have, they gave a share. But we say by Shemitah, there's no share. By Shemitah, there's no share. Now, what's the case of Shemitah? The case of Shemitah is a 6 to a 7, that if it's Gadol, the 6 is there and the 7 grows more. Says the Gemara, okay, same upshlag. Maybe that's speaking where it's a chumrah, because a 6 is muta, a 7 is asa, and therefore you can't be miraya from your Mishnah of Davasheshna Matirin. So we then attempted again. Then we went ahead and we attempted again from a Mishnah. If you have a saw of truma that gets, or is this what we're up to? I'm sorry. Right. Then we finally we decided we have a source. We have a source. We have a Mishnah. You have bitzalim. You have onions that you did that fell down upon them water. We said that all of them, if they're very green, and this is speaking to a 6 to a 7. If it's very green, it's asa. If it's not green, it's muta. Okay, the raya is not from that case. The case is the raya from 7 to 8. From 7 to 8, it's asa. 8, it's muta. So if the olin are very green, we'll say what? It's asa. But it will say what? It's muta. If the olin are very green, we'll say it's muta because it grew in what? In the 8th year. And you'd have a raya from an 8 to a 7, which is ashayla. The 7 is issa, the 8 is heta. And so the Gemara said, well, maybe you don't have a raya because they'd be speaking. The person diced. He diced the onions. They weren't a whole onion. It was a diced onion. And by a diced onion, you would say you would be mevatel it. So the final attempt and success was a Tosefta. What is saying the Tosefta? A guy is weeding with nachrim, with kutim. So we said that it's truma, they're choshid, therefore you have to go ma'aseh bada, you can rechilas aroi, and came along with Shimon Gamliel and he said, in fact, if these people, Shimon ben Elazar said, if these are speaking about a person who's choshid al shmita, is a person that's choshid al shmita, then and you it will be asa if it's a 6 to a 7, but however 7 to 8 it would be muta. Why? Because we'll say the 8 is mevatel the 7. So let's go through the same possibilities. You can't say it's a chumrah, it's not a chumrah. You're going to say what? It's speaking where the seed does not get destroyed. It's speaking about chayasais. Chayasais is garlic and luf and shum and salim. These are all dvarim she'ein zaroi kila. And still, it's going to be mutter in the 8th year because it's gadol. You can't tell me it's speaking where you diced it up, because this guy is chayshel al shmita. Diced it up is going to be a tzaddik of a lamdin who knows there's a difference between diced and whole. This guy is chayshel al shmita. He's not going to go ahead and dice it up. So l'chayr, we have a very good raya that the 8th year is mevatel the 7, and there we know that the David Gidol is mevatel the ikka. Fred the Gemara. Now let's go back. What about Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yonasan, guys? Rabbi Yochanan said by Arla it's not mevatel, it's still asa. Rabbi Yonasan by Klei Kerem said it's still asa. And Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yochanan on Amorayim, and this source from Chayasais is the guy who's Choshid al Shmita is Reb Shimon ben Elazar, is a Tana, is a Tosefta, so they can't argue on a Tosefta. Said the Gemara, Lamdis. What's the Lamdis? Shiny Shmita. Why is Shmita different? Even the Isser al Yedei Karka, so too the Bittul takes place al Yedei Karka. Since the Isser comes al Yedei Karka, the Bittul comes al Yedei Karka. What's the difference? By Orla, guys, is it the ground that creates the Isser, or the fact the Zman that it's not a 3-year-old tree creates the Isser? Obviously the latter. By Klei Kerem, what's the Isser? That it's in the ground, or it's in the ground mixed together with the vineyard? Obviously the mixture of the vineyard. By Shemitah, what's the Isser? It's a regular fruit, no different than the rest of the year, except it's the Shemitah year. But meaning the kedusha of the Shemitah year gives it its kedusha. Me'meila you can be mevatel. That's where we're holding the answer up, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yonasan, how they would deal with the Tosefta of Shemitah. Now we've answered Rabbi Yishmael's kasha. Rabbi Yishmael Bakfar Yama, the ikar is mevatel. That the bittul is the roiv that and something that comes out like the Ran is mevatel the ikr. We answered that shaila. Now we're just going to go ahead and deal with the question we said yesterday. You're telling me a chiddush that what? You're telling me, and we'll get back to the shaila in a second, but we digress to go ahead and address that teretz you gave. You say when something, the isser comes because of the ground's mevatel it, on that I'm going to ask. That's what we're holding right now. Okay? I think we set it up good. Says that, let's see the Gemara. We're on Nun Ches Amid Beis. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. Hare Maisa, the Isuroi Al Yedei Karka. The chiyuv to take off Maisa comes from the Havamina now comes from the ground. The Ein, right? And now how does the Issa come Al Yedei the ground? How does the Issa come out of the ground? Because when you put it in the ground, guys, it was kosher b'yasha. Guys, this is the rush. It's a beautiful shot. When you put this in the ground, everything was great, yeah? You took off, you shaded up, you tithed everything. You have a piece of kosher zach. This meat, you made wonderful, wonderful wheat, bread from this wheat. Now you take this wheat, you plant it, and showing what is it? It's tevel. What created that? The ground. So Maisa, the din of Maisa, l'cher is created from the ground. And yet, what do we say? The aim b'tilasa al yedei karka. And if you put it back in the ground, it's not going to be mevatel. The Tanya, litra Maisa, you have a leader of Maisa Rishon. Now we all know for Maisa Rishon, the Levi has to be mafish trumas Maiser. He does not take it off, and he plants his untithed Maisa Rishon in the ground. Good? So again, Maisa Rishon got its kedusha from the ground, and now you're putting Maisa Rishon back in the ground. So like the chilik of the Gemara, it should be batal. Tevel shezara bekarka vishbicha, litra Maisa tevel, litra Maisa of tevel. What does tevel mean? That you didn't separate Trumas Meiser. Shezara bekarka in the Shemitah year, vishbicha in the Shemitah year it got better. Varihi ke'esa litrin, and now it's like 10. So now, guys, what do you have? You have 9 parts Shemitah, 1 part not Shemitah. Good? So if you're going to tell me the ground is Mevatel, it should be the whole thing should be Hefker. Because we know the Shemitah fruit in 9 years is Hefker. Yet we're going to see it's not Hefker, that 1. So why do you see that the ground is not Mevatel? You'd have to take off Trumas Maisa from that 1. However, it has to be taken off from another place. Okay, outside. We just said the following. If you go ahead, we took a 7 and put it in the ground. 7 is a Shemitah. We put it in the ground in the 8th year. The heter 8 goes ahead and overcomes that. The Gemara says why? Because since the Isser of 7 comes from the ground, the heter of 8 also can be mevatel from the ground. Says the Gemara, I'll show you a case where the Isser comes from the ground and it's not mevatel. What's the case? The case is you're taking something that grew in the 6th year, you tithed it except one thing. It was Meiser Rishon, you gave it to the Levi. The Levi did not take up Trumas Meiser. So you're planting a 6. And now in the 7th year, you have a majority over this. So according to your svara that it should be batal, let's say again 9 parts to 1, right? You have 9 parts Shemitah to 1 part Maisa. That 1 part Maisa should be batal, and the whole thing should be pater, because Shemitah is pater from Maisas, right? Yet we're saying no. We're saying you have to take off Maisa. You do have to take off Maisa of that 1 part. It's not batal. And when you take off the Maisa, you can't take it off within, because here 9/10 of that stuff is pata. So you have to take off Maisa from another place. Bottom line is that it's not batal, it's not all hefka. You still have to take a maisa. So we're questioning your chilik that you're making between Shemitah and Arla and Klei Kerem, that those are an issue b'fnei atzmai. Shemitah is bustle in the ground. Here we have a case of Maisa. You put it in the ground. Maisa is and Maisa is not batal. Why not? The chiyuv of Maisa comes from the ground again, like the Rosh. Why does the chiyuv come from the ground? Because you put in heter, and all of a sudden it's asar. It wasn't time based. It wasn't taruvis based. In other words, by Klei Kerim, the svar is taruvis. By Arla, it's man. What did you do over here? You put in mamish gans geschmack wheat into the ground and shine it's asa. So it must be the ground that creates the issa. And so if the ground that creates the issa, now I have a good sushtel to shmita. So your svara doesn't make sense. What's the answer, guys? The answer is maisa. The chiyuv doesn't come from the ground. So einachinami. My answer holds true that what shmita is created by the ground. Shemitah is mevatel by the ground. Maisa is not mevatel from the ground. That's because the issa was not created from the ground. Says the Gemara, Amid Aleph, Amri, Maisa diganhu the kagarim lo. You know what creates the chiyuv of Maisa, guys? When you pile it up, when you make it a creek, when you make it a pile, that's when it's asa. You make it a pile, it's asa. So it has nothing whatsoever to do with the ground. The issa comes from makom acher. So now it's no different than Arla, no different than Klei Kerem, and therefore, since the Issa is not created from the ground, the Issa is not mevatel from the ground. Therefore, you would have to take off Maisa, Shumas Maisa, from that part, that one part out of the 10 that was planted. Guys, good? Massive Rami Bar Chama. Now, you're wondering, finally, why this whole Gemara made its way in. Remember I told you? Anytime Gemara digresses, is always going to bring in the Mishnah as a. Now, this is going back all the way back. This is the Ran, all the way back to Rabbi Yanai. Who is Rabbi Yanai? He's the one who initially answered Rabbi Yishmael Kfar Yomis Shaila. What was his Shaila? A 7 to an 8. What's the din? He said, if you plant truma in the ground, right, it loses its shem truma. How does it lose its shem truma? Because it's mut b'achilas aroy. So in other words, Rabbi Yanai said it is mevatel. We're now going to question Rabbi Yanai. So we're going back to our Ikasugya. Massive Rami Bar Chama on Rabbi Yanai, who says that you're mevatel the truma because it's going to be chayiv. Koinim peris elu alai, koinim heim alpi, koinim heim lefi. These particular peris are koinim on me. These particular peris are koinim al to my mouth. Lefi to asa b'chilafei and b'gdoleihem. The asa to barter them, or if you plant them. Or koinim shani oichel shani tayim muta b'chilachem b'guleihem b'davish zara kala. Aval b'davish shein zara kala afilu giduli masurim. Now, 1 second. If you're telling me that the gidul is mevatel the heta, right? We see why would the gidul be also? It should be batel. Our case, right? If you have an onion, right? We put it in the ground. You said this onion is koinim. And you have a riboy on this. Whatever grows, right? Whatever grows is asa. And even if you replant it, it's asa. I feel like gidulim is asa. So what do you see? You see the riboy, the increase does not mevatel. Kasha Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai is an Amoira. This is a Mishnah. We have a kasha on Rabbi Yanai. Amar Rav Abba, shiny koinamas. No, it's different. If the issa comes about from koinamas, it's different. Hoil vi boy machlo alayu. Have a look at Davashesh Matirin. They ain't batal beroiv. Guys, by now we know Reb Shimon, right? Davashesh Matirin. I feel about alef batal. What was the lashon of the Gemara? The Chachamim didn't give a shear. Why? Because it's not batal. What is koinam? It's a neder. What's a neder? It's a mitzvah to take it off. So the reason why it's not batal, really it should be batal. Because why? You go after the gidulim that grow. The reason it's not batal over here is because it's a davashesh namatirin. You could take off the koinam by being machal. Good. Fred Gemara Kasha on that. V'hari truma the iboy mitchel alayu. Guys, when truma is in your hands, if you separate truma from the kri, you can change your mind. You could be shoyal on it. Good? You could take it off. Now, if that's the case, then it should be a davashesh matirin. And then it should be afil el v'batal. And nonetheless, even though truma you could take off, it's still what? Batal b'roiv. How do you know truma is batal b'roiv? Did nan. Saw truma tameya. You have a measurement of truma that's tamei. Shenaflu lepachais memeya chulin. It falls in less than 100. Again, I spoke out. There's different shiurim for bittul. By regular tarubis, it's 60. By oral, we said it's 200. By truma, it's 100. You need 100 to 1. Good. So now you have less than the 100, so it's not batal. Tarkiv, you have to let it rot. Holameya, but let's say there was 100, then tala, it would be what? It would be batal. So now we're questioning your statement. You're telling me that something that you can go ahead and take off is a davar sheyesh lo matirin. Truma you could take off, and it's not a davar sheyesh lo matirin. So your teretz you want to give from koinam is not a good teretz. So going back to the original shaila, you, Rabbi, and I say that the ikar is mevatel, the tafel is mevatel, the ikar, the gidl is mevatel, the gidl is mevatel, the ikar. Over here, you said that what? You said over here that teretz you wanted to say koinamis. We asked the kasha from koinamis that it's gidul gedulim zasa, whatever grows is zasa. It's not mevatel. You want to answer it's a davar sheish matirin because you can take it off. Truma is truma is batal. You could take it off. So it says the Gemara, Ami truma biad koyin askina. You're right. Usually you could be take off truma. That's when it's in the hands of the Yisrael. Once it gets to the hands of the koyin, it's too late. So this truma that is batal is not a davar sheyesh matirin. It's a davar she'ein matirin. You can't take it off, and that's why it's batal. But the teretz I gave you by kainomas that it's a davar sheyesh matirin holds true, and therefore it's not batal. Says the Gemara, if it's speaking that it came to the hands of the koyin, ema seifa. Let me ask you from the seifa on that mishnah in Trumas. Im haisa tahira, you said that if it's 100. It's truma tameya, less than 100, you have to let it rot. If it was tahira, timacha lekayin. So now you have chulin mixed in what with what? Truma mixed in, right? You have truma mixed in with chulin. All kasha. Good. Who has it? Who has it? You're telling me a kayin? So what a kayin who has it, what does he have to do? Sell it to a kayin? Let him eat it. There's nothing wrong with it. If you are telling me the Reisha is speaking when it was in the hands of Yisrael, hands of the kayin, and therefore you couldn't take off the truma, so let's go ahead and be consistent with that pshat in the Mishnah. Guys, first look at first clause. If it falls, if. The reason why it's batal b'roiv and not afilu be'elf like batal is because the kayin has it. Since the kohen has it, you can't, it's a davar she'ein matirin. If that's speaking where the kohen has it, what's the seifa? If you have a classic case of dimua means mixture, meaning you have kasha tahar truma mixed with chulin. Says the Mishnah, he should sell it to a kohen. Why is he selling it to a kohen? If this is speaking about a kohen, this is speaking about a kohen, right? El must be this is not speaking about a kohen. Says the Gemara, it's speaking about Yisrael, and now we're changing gears. Says the Gemara, Ella, you know what it's speaking about? The Reisha, why you can't take off Bishayel on it? Be Yisrael, Shenaf Lomi Beis Avi Imai. His maternal grandfather is a Kohen. His mother is a Bas Kohen. He's a Yisrael. The grandfather died. He inherited the grandfather. So the truma was in the hands of the grandfather, was a kayin, and therefore you can't be shayel on it, and therefore it's a davar she'ein lo matirin, and therefore if he has it, what should he do with it? Sell it. But you answered up why truma is speaking that it's a davar she'ein lo matirin, because since it was in the hands of the kayin, you can't be shayel on it. So far, so good. Says the Gemara, "V'hakatani seifa timacha l'koyin chutz midimei oisa sa'a." Bishleima, if you're telling me it's a regular Yisrael, and he's only permitted toivus hana, so he would be able to sell it. with the the chulin part, with the exception of the truma part. However, if you're telling me that it's totally his, why does he have to sell it chutz in that part? Sell the whole thing. Says the Gemara, Ella, you got a problem. So Tumachal Kohen Chutzim de Isasa. Okay, so now what have you done? You've destroyed your pshat. You've destroyed your pshat. You wanted to tell me that speaking that what's the kasha? By Kainamis, the reason why it's asa, because it's a dava sheyesh lematirim, because you should take off the neder. By truma, it's also a dava sheyesh lematirim, because you can be sure on the truma. You wanted to say that the case of truma, where it's bottle, because it's bottle, is speaking by where there's no din of taking it off, right? You can't say that, because clearly the Mishnah that we just proved, it's in hands of the Yisrael, because you have to sell it. So obviously you say that what? It must be truma, even when it's a dava sheyesh matirin, because the you can be shayla on the truma because the Yisrael still has it. The raya the Yisrael still has it is if it's tahar and gets mixed with chulin, he sells it with the exception of the truma part. So you see that so if it's in his hands, he could be shayla on it. So the question is, where this concept you're telling me that kainamis is a dava sheish matirin, you could be shayla on it. I have a kasha from truma. Truma apparently, which you could be shayla on, is still considered a dava she'ein loy matirin. So my kasha again, hadro kasha leduchte on loy Rabbi Yanai, that the giddel that grows is mevatel the ikar. By kainamis, the giddel that grows is not mevatel the ikar. And the teretz you're giving me that it's a dava sheish lematirin because you can be shayla on it, I'm disproving you from truma, because truma is also you can be shayla on it, and still truma is a dava she'ein lematirin. So what's the pshat according to Rabbi Yanai? After the Gemara, I'll tell you what the pshat is. Ella ema, I'll tell you why it's not a question from kainamis. Ella bishlema kainamis mitzvah le'atshulei. It's a mitzvah to go ahead and be shayla aleihem. Bishum the Reb Nassan. Remember, guys, you'll remember this. The Reb Nassan, kol anoider, anyone who makes a neder, ki'ilu bana bama. It's like he built a private mizbeach. V'hamekaimoi, and anyone who keeps the neder, ki'ilu makter leha. It's like what? He's being makter on it. Aval truma, but by truma, my mitzvah letshulei alav. What mitzvah is there to be shayla on it? Pirish. We're keeping the same teretz, guys. Really, kainamis, the reason it's not bottle is because of dava sheish matirin. And why is it dava sheish matirin? Because you could take off the neder. Not only could you take off the neder, it's a mitzvah to take off the neder. Since it's a mitzvah to take off the neder, we can view this thing now as mutter, because it's going to be taken off. The ability to remove something doesn't make it mutter. The need to remove something makes it mutter. By truma, it's true you could take it off, but there's no need to take it off because it's not a mitzvah, and therefore it's bottled because it remains a dava sheyesh eila matirin. Masha'en came by neder, which it's not going to remain because it's a mitzvah to get rid of it. Therefore, it's a dava sheish matirin, vafilu be'elef le'batel, and therefore, by kainamis, it's not batel, and it's not a kasha Rabbi Yanai by truma, by shmita, that Rabbi Yanai said by truma, that it is batel. You could take it off, good, you could take it off, but that doesn't make it a dava sheish matirin. Dava sheish matirin means that it has to be removed. It means like a mitzvah to remove it. I'll give you an example. Ma'aseh sheni, guys, is a dava sheish matirin. Because when you bring it to Shalayim, you have to be poided. You have to be poided it. Beitza shenol de biyontif. Automatically, it's going to be mutter. It's the dava sheish matirin. In other words, the ability to make something mutter does not make it dava sheish matirin. The fact that it will be mutter makes it dava sheish matirin. So truma, it's possible to do, but it's not done. There's no chiyuv to do it. By the neder, it's like there's a chiyuv to be poida, there's a chiyuv to take off the neder. It's a mitzvah. The mail it's a dava sheish matirin. Okay, so this basically is the end of the sugya. I mean, we're going to continue with this zroim the sugya, but this is the end of the sugya of Rabbi Shmuel's question whether it's mevatel the ikar, whether you have the and the answer is yes. The answer is we have the case from the Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Lazar, the case from Chayasis, needing with a Jew who's Choshen and Shemitah, and this, we said that 7 to 8 will be muta, right? It's a 7 year, it'll be muta. Why will it be muta? Because it's going to be mevatel it, and that stays, okay? How are we doing? Good? We're good? Okay. Now we're just going to go back to discuss something previously until the end of the parak, okay? We said something before. Gufa. Again, gufa always means you brought something in as a question. Now we're going to analyze it unto itself. Gufa. Rabbi Yochanan. Litra bitselim shetikna. You have a liter of onions that you went ahead and tithed. So they're totally kosher v'yasha. Vizara, and then you planted them. So it's not a shemitah, it's a shaila. It's a shaila of a meiser. So we say misasheres lefikula. You have to take meiser off according to it. So in other words, you plant it in the ground. You have 5-6 parts to this one part. When you take off meiser, you're going to have to take off this part as well. Why? Because this is bottle to this. That was one of the right. That's the right was bottle. This is bottle to this. That's what we said. Memela, even though it's mutter, this is bottle. We said you can be garaya because it's v'chumra. Okay, now. So Yosef Rabba or Yosef Rava v'kamar lo shmaitza. Amal Rav Chisda. Man sayis l'chol Rabbi Yochanan. Who's going to answer you, Rava and Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan, your Rebbe. Should be Rabbi, I guess. Heter shebehen lehechin halach. Where does the heter go? Now, this is a madna shaila. Guys, any taruvis, what do you say? It's gone. Heter, it's gone. So what's the Gemara shaila, guys? And says the Ran the following: Bishlema by Isser, you want to be mevatel the tam of the Isser. So if you have shishim kineged this. Let's say you have a case of taruvis. You have a pig, and you have a kosher piece of meat, and you have 60 times versus the pig. Means you don't taste the pig. The is there, but you don't taste it. This is there. By heta, there is not. You're going to be mevatel a heta, but where's the mechanics of doing that? There's no. It's heta and heta. You mevatel a heta. It doesn't make any sense. It's like a lumdis and taruvis. How do you view taruvis? Do you view taruvis as the is there, but it's bottle, or do you view it's not there at all? So that could be a big lumdis over here. But the Ran explains the kasha like that. Bishlema by issa, when you be mevatel the issa is gone. You don't taste it. Mashenke by heta, it's not shaykh, it's gone. So where did it go? This heta, that this is metukin, and these 5 are not, where did this go to? That's his kasha. So again, we're self-analyzing the statement. Heta sheben leichen halach, amalei. So Rav Chisda, they told Rav Chisda, Rabbi told Rav Chisda, miloi tenan the kavasei, bitselim sheyardu aleim geshamin. Again, you have planted in the 6th year are bitselim. They grow in the 7th year, and the question is, are they growing from the ground of the 7, or are they growing from the onion? Bitsimchu, we had this before, and it grows. Amid base. Im hoya olin shelahem shleirim. We said if their leaves are dark green, then asurim because they're healthy and it's a raya. It didn't come from it came from the ground. Hayriko, but if it's a pale green, then mutarim. They will be muta. It's a raya. It came from the 6th year onion. The chishchayrim, when they're dark green, amai asurim. Now the havamina is even the onion is asa, even the 6 onions asa. Leima heta shebehen lehechin halach. Again, the havamina of the Gemara is you took a 6, you put it in a 7. Now you're telling me that when it gets dark, that the whole thing is asa. Sai the leaves that grew and sai the onion. But 1 second, the onion is like the metukin we said before, Rabbi Yochanan. And this is metukin, it's the 6th year. So obviously, you're telling me that even though it's mutter, it's gone. So just like by the onion, when it's green over here, the onion which was heter is now gone. So too, when this was metukin and these were not, this is gone. So says Rabba to Rav Chisda, your svara is not a good svara. I got something backing me up. Not only I got something backing me up, I got a Mishnah and Shemitah backing me up that the heter is gone. What's that? Not so fast. Now that you understand, it's not so fast. Amalei, Rav Chisda retorted to Rabba, or Rava, Misarvis al Ika Katani, Ataisefis Katani Asurim. When it said it's usher, it wasn't going on the onion, it was going on the leaves. The onion is mutter, and it stays mutter. And therefore, my kasha to you that the one thing that was metukin should remain metukin is a good kasha. Because when it said usher, it was just going on the leaves. It wasn't going on the onion. Ihachi, if you're telling me, when it says that over here, that when it says it's dark green, it's only going on the leaves, not the onion. My usher of Shimon Gamliel Neimer. On that Mishnah, there's a brisa of Shimon Gamliel comes to add. Now, l'chayr, what's he adding? The Tanya. So again, guys, according to us, fellas, according to us, right now, the way Rav Chisda is teaching the Mishnah, if you have green, dark green leaves, they're asa. The onion is muta, right? Dark green leaves is what is asa. The onion is muta. Yeah? If this would get mixed together with something else, you'd only need shishim against the leaves. You would not need shishim against the onion, because it's muta. Okay? Let's see. Ihachi, my asa of Shimon Gamliel. Ihachi, if you're telling me that the leaves are muta and the onions asa, the time what? My asa of Shimon Gamliel, the Tanya of Shimon Gamliel, Hagadol b'chiyav chayiv, that grew in the 8th is chayiv, the leaves. Hagadol b'patur, the 6th year pater. So l'chayra, he's saying the exact same thing. And then afkamina would be, would you need shishim against the whole thing or just against one part of it? Guys, you good? One more time. Says we're digressing. We're saying the following in the Mishnah that we said that if water falls down, water falls down on onions, and the onion is a 6-year onion in the 7th year. If we ascertain that the growth took place in the 7th year, we ascertain that by the color of the greens, right? It's asa. What's asa? Havamina, the whole thing. Why don't you say the same thing? Where does the heta go? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you what, the heta stays. The heta stays. For the Gemara kasha, if the heta is staying, that's the way you're touching up. What does Rav Shimon Gamliel come to say? He's saying the same thing. The heta is the heta, the is the issa. So where are we going with this? Says the Gemara the following. The time of Shimon Gamliel, he said, read it, I read it wrong. Read it the way. My Yosef Shimon Lameiman, the Tanya of Shimon Gamliel, Hegel b'chiyav chiyav, Hegel b'pat b'tur. Tanakama nami hachi ama. The Tanakama's Taka said the same thing, that only the leaves are rasa, but the onion is muta. Says the Gemara, Kula mastis and Reb Shimon Gamliel. The whole mission is Reb Shimon Gamliel. Katani lo. The Adkan l'sham leil Reb Shimon Gamliel the like katarach. Right. So now, so the whole mission is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, right? The whole Mishnah. And therefore, that's muta is muta, that's asa is asa. Okay? So now, what's the chiddush of Shimon Gamliel? You know, that you didn't hear. Again, he must be telling me something. What's he telling me? In other words, guys, in the case of, you're telling me that the green that came down is asa and that is muta. What's he coming to teach me? He's coming to teach me the following. Right? Where you didn't do any trouble at all. Where he goes ahead and he's tarach, batal beruba, then will be what? Batal beroiv. Pirish. Where does Shimon Gamliel say his din? He said his din where the person was metakin. Person didn't where he didn't go ahead and do anything. It was in the ground. The water fell down. It was a 6 year to a 7 year. He didn't do anything. Then it's bottle. Then it's going to keep it. It's not going to be bottle. Masha'en came. If he went ahead, he was metaking the object. Rabbi Yochanan's din. He was metaking the object. Good. He was matriach. Then he planted it. So he's matriach, right? mitakin and planting, then we'll say that it's batal. So that's the chilik between. One more time. V'ad kan like shamalei leReb Shimon. What is he saying? That Rabbi is saying that even if the Mishnah is as you Rav Chisda explains it, it's still not shver upon me. Even if you're going to tell me that the whole thing is batal, it's not shver to me. In other words, you want to say that the whole thing is batal. Where does it go? It's not shver to me. I'll tell you where it goes. Ad kan like that it's not batal. It's two separate entities. The leaves are the leaves, and the onion's the onion. The like katarach. He didn't do anything. Aval heicha the katarach, where he was matakin and he planted it. Then batal beruba, it would be batal beroiv. So it's not. And your question, you're asking me that where does it go? It goes. My tircha makes it go away. My tircha makes it go away. Okay, one more time. Rabbi Chisda is asking on Rabbi. That Rabbi Yochanan said that the heter, where you had something matukin, is planted with this that you're chayiv to take off. It's batal, right? Where did it go? So he retorted. I'll tell you where it went. It's the same thing as having onion grow from 7 to 8. That we say that the whole thing is asa. Why don't you say where the heter go? It goes einachinami. Says Rav Chisda. The heter doesn't go any. So where does the heter go? Says Rav Chisda. Einachinami. The heter. He thought the whole thing was asa. Rav Chisda thought the whole thing was asa. Rabbi said no, the whole thing's not asa. Only this is asa and that is asa. Right? And this is asa and that is asa. Rav Shimon Gamliel is the Tana. Rav Shimon Gamliel is the Tana who says that the onion is muta and the onion is muta and the leaves are rasa. Right. So, and that you asked from the case of Matukin over here and over here. Why over here is it batal and there it's not batal? I'll tell you why. Over there, it just happened memela. The 6 went to 7 and the water fell down. Not batal. Over here, where he was matakin and planted it, then it is batal. That's the difference between the two. Very good. Let's finish up. Now we're questioning that concept, right? In other words, let's question that then. You're telling me that anytime that you tircha, it's mavato. Says the Gemara, 1 second. You have a case of litra maisa, right? You have a leader of maisa rishon l'chayra, tevel, the katarach. You went ahead, you planted it. The katani for us a litra maisa alav mimakamacher. We began to share today with that case that you had to go ahead, and it's not batal. Guys, that was the case. You took a tevel, meaning it was maisa rishon, they didn't have trumas maisa. You planted it in the ground, it grew in the Shemitah year. So we're going to say that even though the Shemitah year, everything is hefker, right? You still, guys, good, look, this finger, right? This, you're still going to have to take off. 1 second. If you're telling me when you're torach, everything's batal, so this should be hefker also, and it should not be a din of maisa. Again, your concept. Anytime you matriach, like planting, automatically it's batal. We began to share. You had a piece of tevel, of maisa rishon. You didn't take off trumas maisa, that's why it was tevel. You planted it. You had 9 times connected it, and still you had to take off maisa because it wasn't batal. 1 second. If I was matriach, it should be batal. That's the kasha. That's the kasha. Very good kasha. Says the Gemara. No, by maisa we have a special pasuk. Why does it say by maisa? Right? The shiny maisa. Maisa is different. The amakra aseh to aseh. We all know aseh to aseh means what? Give a maisa, you'll get rich. That's the drasha. But aseh to aseh means that you're going to go ahead and there's a time that you take off maisa even when the maisa was what? Was a maisa of issa. What happened? You put it in the ground. It says aseh to aseh is called maisa tuva sarecha. That anything that's zaracha, it's that what is zaracha that is yours. It was metoken, it's yours, right? When something is maisa, Maisa, when's there a din of Maisa, guys? When it's Zaracha. So Zaracha means when it's yours. So in a normal case, you take yours, you put it in the ground, there's a din of Maisa. But over here, right, that is when, that's Dafke B'Zaracha, right? Vehetera, and it was Mutta. But Zori Inchi, right? A person usually plants Heter. Isura, but in this case, where he planted Trumas Maisa, he planted something that was Tevel, because it didn't have Trumas Maisa taken off, Lo Zori Inchi. A person doesn't go ahead, what? And a person doesn't go ahead and take it off, and therefore remains Bechir. What's Pshat? When you have a case of regular planting, you take Zaracha, you're eating it and everything, you plant it. Now there's a Chiyuv of Maisa. That's Zaracha. If you take Tevel, meaning Maisa Rishon, you take Maisa Rishon, right? And that Maisa Rishon didn't have Trumas Maisa, that's not Zaracha, guys. It's not yours. So therefore, the normal protocol of Maisa doesn't apply. The normal protocol of Maisa is whatever you plant is bottle, right? Guys, you plant a regular seed, now you have this, everything is bottled. Why? Because that's normal. But when this is not Zaracha, it's not your seed, because it's Tevel, it doesn't have the protocol of being bottled, therefore it remains alone, and you have to move out. That's the difference. Beautiful. Okay, what's the Lashon? It put in the words, it's called Zaracha. If they had Teira Zari in she, but people plant that, when is it bottle? When they plant normally, when it's Zaracha. Isura like Zari in she, something that's Tevel, a person doesn't plant. That's the Tevel over here. Maisa Rishon, you take up Trumas Maisa. Therefore, it's not bottle. But Einachinami, if a person's matriach, normally it's bottle. You're questioning that concept. If a person's matriach, it's usually bottle. Gufa. Amar Rab Chanina, says Rab Chanina Tersai, we're meeting for the second time. Rab Yanai, this is going back, guys, to the original Shaila Rab Yanai by Truma's bottle. You have Botzel Shel Truma, you have an onion of Truma, Shenata, you planted, Rabbi Gidul Ikroi. So guys, this is speaking that it's a 7 to an 8. So you have it's Truma, you plant it. Rabbi Mutta, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's not speaking at Shemitah at all. It's Truma. It's Truma. It grows. So what do we say? It's bottle. When do you know it's bottle? Because you can eat an achilas aroy. Guys, Truma is also, it's misib b'dei shemayim if you eat it. If you plant it and you can eat achilas aroy is a raya that it lost its shame Truma. That's Rabbi Yanai's din, that the gidul what grew is mevatel the ikka. So it's not, I'm sorry, it's not a Shemitah din. I got confused. It's Batal Shal Truma. It's a Truma Dikadin that we said earlier. Shenatu v'Rabbi Gidul v'Alekroi Muta. L'neimer, that means to say the Gidul Heta Ma'ila Esa. The Gidul of Heta of Tevel, in this case Tevel, is Ma'ila the Issa of Truma. Okay, so that's the basis of the whole shir. But Tanan, we have a Mishnah Gidule Truma, right? The Gidule Truma is Truma. Mashma that goes from Truma is Truma. Rabbi, you're an Amoira. How can you argue in a Mishnah? You're telling me that this is Truma, what grows from it, what is now, it's Mavatal it. It's not true. Whatever grows from it is Truma. So, and for the Gemara, we're not speaking about Gedulim, we're speaking about the Geduli coming in. We're speaking about that you took the Gedulim from the Truma and then you replanted it. And there we'll say that the Gidul from that is Mavatal, the second Gidul. Hanami, says the Gemara. Hanami Tanina. So why would need Rabbi Yanai to tell me this? It's a Mefursha Mishnah. Giduli Gidulim Chulin. Giduli Gidulim is Chulin. It's not Truma. It says, in other words, if I take Truma, guys, if I take Truma, I planted, it's still Truma. I replanted, it's Chulin. So what's Rabbi Yanai telling me? If you're telling me it's an onion that grew, and then you replanted it and it grew, so Rabbi Yanai is telling me a Mishnah. Says the Gemara, no, it's the difference. I feel a bit of Rabbi Yanai is telling me I feel a bit of a shein zarakala. Rabbi Yanai said dafka by an onion. So you might have thought by when do you say that what is gidul in his mutter? That's when the seed dissipates. If it's truma where the seed doesn't dissipate, I can see it still being down the line, still part of the truma. Kamash Rabbi Yanai a chiddush gadol that's still it's mutter. The gidul is mutter. Says the Gemara. But Tanya, we have a Mishnah. Hatevel, that a gidula mitarim, you can eat achila sarai, as long as it's in the field, achila sarai. And when is that? B'davish is aray kala. Avo b'davish ain't aray kala, but if it's an onion, I feel a gidula masurim, you can eat achila sarai. So how can you tell me it's muta? And if the Gemara, ribuye de rabbi gidulin al ikroi muta kamash milan. Rabbi is telling me that gedulim, I feel a b'davish ain't aray kala, even if it's by an onion. That's what? When it's Rabbi Gidulin al Gidulin. In other words, the double riboy. And what that we said that Gidulin is also, speaking with what, it's not Rabbi. Perish. When did I say, guys, if you take an onion, you replant it, and then that onion, the second onion is going to be muta, is when you have a majority of growth over that second onion. Where does it say Gidulin is also, where you don't have majority of growth? Kamash one. Hajjan lech anoid ben yerek, hajjan lech anoid ben yerek. Appropriately, we began with a yerek and we ended with a lot of yerakos. Shah yerakos. To everybody, if anybody is around, again, I will be giving kiddush after hashkava minyan at 7:15 in the morning. Is the hashkava minyan? It's a thisifei Torah. If people don't like to spend a lot of time in shul, there will be some good food and good share and good liquor and good wine, and we won't discuss anything else besides Torah.